welcome to Build with Rob. I am Rob Dyrdek, CEO and founder of the Dyrdek Machine, a one-of-a-kind venture creation studio. We are a company that creates companies by systematically fusing art, science, and magic through a process we call the machine method. The art is the creative vision and constant shaping and refinement of the idea. The science is the proven methods and time-tested fundamentals of business. The magic is that intangible, universal luck that provides an unexplainable push towards success. Each guest on the show is one of my do-or-die partners and co-founders. This show is an inside look at all the companies we've created and the lessons we have learned along the journey. Today, I'm talking with Brian Atlas, my co-founder in Street League Skateboarding and the president and COO of the Dyrdek Machine. SLS was acquired in a merger with Thrill One Sports and Entertainment, creating the largest action sports media and entertainment company in the world. The vision for Street League was to create a true professional skateboarding league where the best pro skateboarders in the world would battle it out trick for trick on the sport's biggest stage. We created an innovative scoring system in a format that created exciting buzzer beater moments never before seen in action sports. SLS was unique in the fact that I funded the entire company from the very beginning. A few years after it was launched, we decided to take on a venture investment. Choosing to take on venture funding was a pivotal moment that changed our lives forever. We'll talk about whether it was the right decision to take the leap from privately funded to venture funded and all the things that we now take into consideration if and when we raise money. Brian Atlas, welcome to the show, man. Build with Rob, we're here. You know what I mean? After all the talk, all the potential names, all of what it could be, here it is. It's Build with Rob.
Feels good.
You know, how does it feel? How does it look? How does it sound?
Looks amazing, you know, the premium media experience. Expect nothing less.
Okay, look, before us is this extraordinarily glistening symbolism of absolute and complete success. They are the liquidity vintage and the exit trophies of the Dyrdek Machine. In today's episode, we're talking about our path from creating Street League together through learning to raise capital and then really taking it all the way to a merger with Thrill One Sports and Entertainment. So this is really our journey together where we learned a ton. We learned venture capital and raising money and basically everything that we are today from our experience together from Street League. And what I really want to showcase today is really we made a choice that, hey, this is a self-funded, sustainable business that we decided to take on capital partners, and it changed both of our lives completely and the business and everything. So that's really the lesson that we want to share ahead of everything. And so really I want to start of laying out sort of our vision and how Street League began. Like, do you remember how you felt about the idea when I told you about Street League from the very beginning?
I think I had two conflicting emotions about it. I thought you had the perfect background to create something so ambitious and amazing for skateboarding. But I was concerned about the audience and the skaters being down for a platform of that magnitude, especially the street skaters that were respected. And it was, what you want to disrupt contest didn't have those guys that were truly authentic to the streets.
Okay, now how old were you when you made this assumption?
I was 22, 21. I was a straight college student, just deep in college.
Man, just graduated college. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is really funny. And to me, I had been working on the vision for years, right? Mm-hmm. So, went through the entire process of teaching myself to draft in 30-to-1 scale before AutoCAD and drafted a 30,000 square foot skate plaza, the first of its kind, and raised the money and had it built in Kettering, Ohio, where I was born, and did the very first version of Street League. hammers versus bangers. All the very best guys in the world came out and had a little mini event there, right? It was the pilot because, you know, the white space and the opportunity in skateboarding was there was a difference between the streets and filming and sort of the respect that it took to create a career through video parts and magazines and then contest skaters. And the idea was I was going to bridge that. And of course, it was called Street League from the very beginning. You know what I mean? From the streets to the league. You know what I mean? Like always. So I knew there was something there from when that plaza happened. Then I invested in a startup television network that was going to buy malls all over the country. And Street League was going to be a part of it. And I was going to put Street League courses in every single mall that these guys bought. And it was going to be the Pro Tour. Extraordinary. Don't know what I invested in. They just stopped talking to me. I want to say I invested a couple hundred G's, but it really accelerated the vision, you know, including I did the logo of myself, you know, Backsmith, OG. But it really came to life when, you know, I was offered the opportunity to be the consultant for the Maloof Cup, and the Maloof brothers were throwing an event, and they wanted to come in and disrupt it, and I was hesitant because it's like I'm doing this Street League thing, and like, but I guess I'll share some of my ideas and maybe we could partner, you know, and that really changed everything because we met, you know, Joe Ciaglia there. That proved that, like, wow, he built a concrete course in 2 days that could be torn down, right? Which was like didn't even seem fathomable.
Yeah,
back
nothing like
then.
that has ever been done before.
Paul Tablieb showed up with an instant scoring system that they were like, nope, that's too confusing and doesn't work. But I knew that was this sort of aha moment of like, wow, if this is really going to be different and really be compared to like sports, if you could score every trick along the way, and this would make it more closer to pro sports and the mainstream audience could actually follow it. Because what would happen now is like, you know, the guy gets his points and you're building points all the way through. And, you know, the journey was set of like, here's sort of the vision, here's sort of the parts, but I didn't quite understand the business. And this is where Brian Atlas comes in, where I hire Brian Atlas to write the business plan, right? And, you know, we joke about it being like a 600-page business plan for a business that I was going to finance anyway, but it was a masterpiece. You know what I mean? And do you remember your process when you were like, because you did competition analysis, consumer analysis, like you really got so detailed. Where did you like learn to write a business plan from? And take me back to the passion and how committed you were when you wrote that plan.
So I was lucky enough to be in this entrepreneurship program at USC. And that in itself was a decision that kind of set me up to be able to do that for you and write the business plan, because I studied at the time, it was before, you know, the 20-page pitch deck, and business plans were still something they taught in entrepreneurship school. So
it's funny to think that at some point, everyone now that's just put the vision on it. You had to actually do work.
Exactly.
And people really read them. Give us a business plan.
100%.
Now it's just a deck. We can't read a business plan.
Exactly.
Do we think you got something here? We'll give you money.
Exactly. So I learned that skill set, and I was actually found a couple consulting jobs on Craigslist and through word of mouth, and I started doing it on the side. And once you started talking about Street League and I saw the Maloof Cup go down, I remember being in the stands and seeing P-Rod switch flip, the final trick almost. I mean, it was so close to the Street League vision as a case study. I was like, wow, this thing is fully possible. Rob was right. Like, this is a fully feasible vision. So I was just so motivated and fired up to do such a good job because I thought it could be like a life-changing opportunity. I know I was like, you know, charge you $3,000, and I was all, you know, intense about the contract. And in hindsight, it's really funny.
No, what would be great is if I just didn't pay you. We still talked about it, where I still owed you. That'd be way
amazing.
better.
But I don't know if you remember, I used to be in your kitchen. You'd be pacing and talking about Street League, and I would just be typing away. And you had it all in your mind. You like had the details, the lighting package, and it being in this premium setting, and so much of that was just in those sessions, and I was just really fired up to capture it.
It went on to be this extraordinary business plan, and it's you know, all these years later, it's very true to how we work today, you know, because as the COO and president of the Dyrdek machine, it's a lot more streamlined where it's like, here's the vision for this particular vertical. Here's all the pieces that we need. Like, here's the person that we need to hire. Like, and then you capture and then go execute it and apply it. It's you know, you would have never thought that it started at a business plan in the Robin Big kitchen. You know what I mean? Where there was still like TV lights in there and like smell from like dead rats. You know what I mean? It was a lifestyle. It was an early MTV lifestyle. But it transitioned quickly, right? Because the truth is, all the relationships, both with, you know, all of the different people that spend money in the space, all of the athletes, like, you know, having this idea of it's going to be like true professional sports. We're going to sign everyone to exclusive contracts. We're going to pay more prize money than any contest in history. It's going to be a by skater, for skater type of mentality. And really, only you could have written the business plan because you'd have to be a skater to even know how to write it. And then from that point, it was a pretty easy, like, hey, I'll give you a piece of this thing. Let's go and do this together, right? Yeah, so
life-changing.
You know, so that hard work and dedication for that 3,000, cake and eat it too. You became the co-founder of a professional skateboarding league along with getting your $3,000 on two $1,500 installments. But it was easy to build, right? In the sense that it was just me selling, right? Like I built the whole thing out, put the vision, got all the pro skaters involved, you know, bullied some of the agents that controlled some of the bigger name guys to make sure that like everybody was signed. But even then, we went and signed all the most hardcore street guys that never entered contests that believed in the vision and what it was, right? And that's why we were able to fund it so easily in year one. And so here we are, you know, August 28th, 2010 in Glendale, Arizona. What was it like for you in that very first event that we did?
Well, I was just completely, you know, shocked with emotion and just, I can't believe we like pulled it off. It was like the undertaking, like going into it, we were so naive about what we were even creating, the magnitude of it, that after the first event, it was, you know, emotional. I was just completely, you know, happy and just over the moon.
All right, let me tell you what, I still believe there's a part of my soul imprinted on the floor seat, section 22 of the Glendale, Arizona arena. It was one of the most painful experiences of my entire life. If you can imagine this extraordinary concrete urban plaza in the middle of a giant arena where pro sports is played, I, you know, went all out, crazy UFC level lighting package. And the contest format was like watching paint dry. It was, not only was it like watching paint dry because I didn't anticipate how slow the pace would feel, but then we had no run of show, no music, no sound, like the announcing wasn't right. It was like, I mean, I can still feel like my soul dying, like thinking, is this amazing or did this just fail instantly? But true to its concept, right? Because the depth of it was, hey, you go through all these sections and you collect points, and if you're close at the end, it's going to come down and create this buzzer beater moment where somebody's going to have to do a single trick to win. And that's, you know, it was soul wrenching, like just soul sucking, quiet, painful death up until those last couple tricks. And boy, it was there, right? Like the real professional sport moment existed. And it was like, man, this is really it. And it's, you know, perhaps there was some emotion in there. I'm not a very emotional guy. You know what I mean? I'm like, optimize. How is this going to get better? You know what I mean? But it was a massive undertaking that we did do, you know, and it was a thrilling thing to see come alive, and it mattered to the community. It mattered to everybody. And you know, ultimately, even at the time, like skateboarding judging was done in a way that how the judges felt about the person. There was all this like, you know, free reign range.
It's his time to win type of thing.
Yeah, like they would just choose it, and they would never let Nyjah win because, Nyjah Houston was a really young, super talented phenom that the old guard just didn't want to see win. Like he would win every contest and they would just give him second. And our system was like built to where that could never happen again. And, lo and behold, he came out there and made it happen and he won that first event. Only later did we find that, we had to go through a custody situation with him because his parents divorcing and go through a court to even get him there. And his family was like dead broke when they showed up in Arizona. And this kid, like big flip front boarded the big rail in the final section to win $150,000 and change his life, something that, it's always a great aspect of the story. But we now have this professional sports entertainment property. We're players, right? Because we killed the whole industry by signing those exclusive deals. Then we forced you could choose up with the X Games or Do Tour, but you couldn't be in them all. Like we put pressure on that whole industry, especially the mainstream media. And we were a real deal player in it, right? And we had our deal with ESPN, DC, and Monster under it. We had deals with Microsoft and different brands that I had relationships with. And then we were ultimately approached by an individual who did investment banking in the sports media side of business. Who said, "Hey, you guys got a real asset here." Did the CEO at the time of Dyrdek Enterprises, did he talk to you about it before he talked to me? Do you remember when we first sort of heard about Andrew Klein and
I think he just basically brought it to you as a way for you to stop capitalizing it yourself.
Yeah,
more of a solution of. At that point, you were basically the sole investor into your own business.
Yeah. And that's how I did everything in my life. In my life, I never had, I gave away equity I've never been involved with any outside money. I've never been involved in a company where you raised money after the fact. It was totally foreign to me. But we were sustainable, right? We were running lean, doing it all. You were basically running everything, wearing 1,000 hats. And it was sort of that idea of okay, well, all right. So I guess if this investment banker who, again, to this day, I thought an investment banker was the premium clientele handler of a regular bank, not an investment banker who is a middleman who will represent a company who's selling or raising money, who will represent you for both a little bit of your equity, payment up front, and payment a percentage of what you totally raise. Yeah. It's the ultimate middleman deal of all time because you live in all. Think of all the. Think of all. Look, really pick your banker. If you ever think about selling your business or raising capital, be very mindful of the banker that you create. Now we had an amazing one. I'm to this day I look at him as the true beginning of the next chapter of my entire life, because we really did learn all aspects of it. But here we are. We crossed this threshold, right? So it's hey, you can continue just owning this thing outright and funding it yourself, or you can find a partner to come in and be a capital partner to help grow the business. Although we didn't fully quite understand what that meant, right? So we went on the journey of now building the plan for taking this business to market. Do you remember the process? Is there anything that sticks out to you when it became the process of creating how we would sell ourselves?
I remember whiteboard sessions with the bankers trying to figure out what the real business model was and how we were going to tell the story of what the Street League plan was. And it was at that point that it was really clear that we didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
We created something special. We created something disruptive that we felt skateboarding needed, but we didn't create it with an end in mind. And that became really clear when we tried to make that deck.
When did it make sense to you, our trade value, right? Because he initially came in and said, hey, you can raise $10 million at a 30 million post, right? It made no sense. And I remember trying to know, you take the 20 and you add the 10 and now you're worth 30.
I remember pre-money, post-money speech.
Pre-money, because how it works out there, if you're going to go do it, you'll hear a lot of times pre-money and post-money. And so it's they're saying, what is the valuation of the company before you add the money on top? And because you would be perhaps making a a raise of money between 5 and 10, and then the pre sets it. If you ended up only raising 5, then the post money, meaning after the money's in, the total valuation of this business would be 25 million. In our case, it was, we're valuing you at 30 million. We're going to raise 10, so 20 pre, and made no sense to me. Right? We did, $6.5 million, maybe $7 million, running it right at profitable. How on earth could we be worth that much money? Now, do you ever remember trying to figure that out? Like, because I don't remember
Not only did we not figure it out, we went to New York on a road show and just pitched the hell out of a $30+ million valuation. I remember being in these meetings for the first time and just not even understanding the dynamic of what the potential investor was thinking. But we'd be like, oh yeah, we're a $36 million business, post money, and we're trying to raise 6 and a 30.
Okay.
And
okay. Let me back up for everybody here. So this is the stage we're at. We're not even sure what's happening, right? And I have a CEO of Dyrdek Enterprise. I have like internal legal counsel. Like all of us, me, Brian, all of us don't really know what's going on, right? Like none of us have experience at any level in venture, private equity, any aspect of it, right? And so what the investment bank had got us to do is put together this extraordinary plan that we would go out on a road show. We would go and meet everybody that would possibly invest, right? But the problem is this particular business that we were pitching to them was totally unrealistic, right? And so here we are, fully self-funded, never heard of this, got lured in by hey, you may not have to fund this anymore, and you could have 10 million in working capital, right? I was only thinking about it from, okay, I'm not going to lose any money, and then I got this money to try to grow it. Never thought about what it was worth to me ever. And now we're out pitching to all these really sophisticated investors a business plan that was insane. In year 5, we're doing $125 million and 70 million in profit. In hindsight now that we have evolved and grown as business people, it would be the quickest red flag. We wouldn't even think twice about it when we saw something. Come on, nobody's doing 70 million in profit in 5 years off of this niche sports business. How are all these things going to turn into these crazy profitable businesses? But we didn't know any better, right? And so, another big problem with the way that we did it was peak Rob. We're talking peak Rob. It was just flip the car for the Chevy integration and just had a Super Bowl commercial of this crazy stunt. I had all my DC and Monster and Lunchables and all these multiple brand deals. Had a cartoon on Nickelodeon. Had Fantasy Factory, my giant a Willy Wonka place of business. Had Ridiculousness on MTV. I am a multi-platform, multi-brand, just celebrity entrepreneur, just peak power, right? And so we thought, what the best thing to do is lead with Rob.
You put that slide at the top.
Oh man, so we would just lay out, here's everything, and it's wow, this is whoa, okay, and then here's this skateboard business, right? And how many different people do you think we pitched it to?
At least 20 to 30 different groups.
Man, it feels like 100. Okay, but we pitched this razzle dazzle pitch over and over and over again. Some good, some bad. You always left there feeling man, this is it. And we never got one person to invest, right? And the truth is, and this is for anybody that would ever consider transitioning their business from, self-funded to thinking that you're going to go get capital. Money loves clarity, right? At the end of the day, all the people that you're going to pitch to are just looking at you as okay, this is what, if I invest in, you're just another asset class. You're just another opportunity to get a return on capital. For the most part, they're probably managing what is the return they can expect,
exactly.
Right? And so they're looking at it as, clean as can be, of saying, hey, this is an events business that has 4 events that's doing $7 million in revenue. this is like an events business trades at around 1.5 times revenue, not like 4 to 5 times revenue, right? And for us, we wouldn't, even if they said that, I would have like, our investment banker would have jumped in and said, oh, it's a premium and what is, we wouldn't even have been like, even know how to handle something like that. But it was clear to us over time that the approach was wrong on two fronts, right? It was the fact that the shiny object that was Rob and all this entire vision of his entire personal brand and how it scaled into all of these different forms of media and other brands, they were more excited about that. And then ultimately that distracted from the idea of the professional skateboarding league, which then the way we were pitching it was like, this isn't even possible, right? And so we re-strategized, and now, and really, you're running the company. So it would be me in the face, and then like, well, where are you going to be? Oh, I gotta, obviously I'm shooting my cartoon. I got like 2 shows on MTV. I'm doing my other stuff. It was a bad look to be like, here's the visionary behind this thing, but it's just he's got 50 other things
not
going
only
on.
did no one invest, when we did get term sheets, it would be, hey, we want a first look on half of Rob's businesses.
Right.
We had one private equity company that not only were they, totally enamored with that piece, they tried to contractually lock you up. The street league part was not even in their equation. And that's when we really knew we just had to retool the whole thing.
Hey, we got slipped a Mickey where we got a term sheet offer that was just here's the 10 million. And there was like, we got one term sheet. It was for the full 10 million. And then part of it was they owned half of Rob Dyrdek forever. It was not even like, hey, oh, and by the way, everything Rob does for the rest of his life, we own half of it, which, God bless them. You know what I mean? They were, and look, I was so hurt that because in my mind, this is it. We're being recognized. We're going to be taken to the next level. This is what it is. And like the fact that like, nobody bought into the passion, right? Because like, I'm still this, sales guy who's got a vision, who's created this whole universe, right? And it was hard on me that people weren't just buying into me in the vision, right? And that's how it is for all creative product brand people. They're just so brand product, so brand product, so brand product. And people investing, like you might be able to get a high net worth individual that gets drawn into your energy and your charisma and your vision. But people that manage money are trying to understand their return. And when you're asking for that type of money, they are looking at it from, okay, if you're a media business and you're raising money at a $30 million valuation, am I going to get 4 to 5x on my money? Meaning I need this venture to be sold for 100 to 150 for me to make sort of the vision for what I intend to make when I deploy capital. It's another thing you just have to look at. Like the type of their thesis and the type of returns they're looking for will give you more clarity on not only what you have to achieve for them, but whether or not they'd even be interested in investing in you.
Yeah, when we first showed the first version of the pitch to Frank Foster, one of the first true venture capitalists we've ever met, he just said, hey guys, you need to tell a concise financial story. And when he said it, we weren't even in the place to even take it serious. We just kind of kept it moving, and he was spot on.
Yeah, and I still remember to this day of how sharp it was, because he loved the vision. He was bought into like the passion. He was about it all. But then so it was like, what do you say? You need to explain simply how you're going to make money. And it was like, it was cutting and like, you just don't get it, Frank. This is passion. This is skateboarding history. You know what I mean? Which is like, and to me, it's just something that anybody that ever wants to raise any money, you just have to get off like your idea, your passion, everything that you push forward is only validating what they see as a financial opportunity. That's ultimately what you have to understand. So, retooled the whole vision, brought it back down to reality, gave it a proper trade value based off of it being an events business. And then you marched out into the streets to go pitch all of the business yourself yourself so that I wasn't in there selling all the razzle dazzle.
Yeah, we literally took you out of the room. That's
Yeah.
how much of a shiny object the Rob force was.
Yeah.
We were removed from the room. That's how much we had to retool. And the second go at it was a whole other year because there were still other aspects of the plan we were working out, and it was still a tough road.
Yeah.
So we weren't getting a lot of yeses, but at least the story was more dialed. I think we, the valuation itself, like you said, we brought that to planet Earth, brought that down.
Yeah.
It was just a whole
Yeah, I want to say
attempt.
it landed on, like in like the 15 range,
exactly.
It ended up being a lot more realistic, but you did go out and you finally found our very first investor into Street League Skateboarding. And who was that?
That was Mark Wan of Causeway Media Partners. And what was interesting about Causeway is they specialized in sports properties, sports media. Their thesis was tied to live content and having premium athletes. It was literally the bullseye of what Street League represented in our space. So once we saw that firm kind of investment focus, we knew that this might have been a stronger fit.
Yeah, and look, and there's two lessons in that, right? It's one, let the market tell you, like, whether or not you have value or what you need to change or consider if you want to bring on partners. It's a great learning experience to hear other really smart people pick your business apart. Painful, but very real. And then finding capital that connects with the vision of your brand is always going to be, it's a further level than strategic, right? Because not only are they focused on this area, so they're going to have a ton of expertise, but they understand the value of what you're doing and have relationships to scale that value much more than you could even realize, and why that's another really important thing if you can find it. Very hard to find, and we really got lucky, right? So we raised our first round of capital, and man, it got real. It got real overnight, right? Because it's like it was just me and you, running and gunning, living life, like, let's do this, let's do that. And now all of a sudden there's a board structure. Like, you got to restructure the entire way the company is put together as it relates to employees and benefits and all of these additional costs and things that you had to contemplate and put together. What was it like for you, now officially transitioning from a self-funded, privately held business to now a venture-backed, it's time to get a return on our, start growing, it's time for its return on capital time. What was that transition like?
I think the pressure definitely doubled, or just maybe even more, in terms of what the stakes were, because now we had someone with his partners cut a real check. And now we had a plan that we were supposed to meet those expectations. And the quarterly board meeting cadence where you compare the actual performance to plan, and all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, year 2, we said we were going to do this, and year 2 is probably like north of 10 million in revenue, and we're staring at that, and we're like, okay, well, how do we even get there? Like, that plan becomes reality. And Mark and his group they're such stand-up great people that all of a sudden you don't want to let them down. They made a bet on you, and all of a sudden the stakes get higher. It's a totally different game.
And they're strategic validators too. Those board meetings mattered, right? Like, where it's here's the vision, here's the progress, here's some of the things we're kind of stuck on, here's what's not happening and why. And it evolves, right? It's still, there is no part of a business model plan, even after you raise capital. People, like, for some reason, a lot of times will think like, oh, you got all this, you raised a big round, like, you're living life. They like, I think a lot of people will equate, raising a big round of money is like, you just got rich. Like, no, you just got like a gun to your head, and like, now you have to grow because there is now an expectation that we're going to get a return out of this,
And I think at this point, you were already becoming a voice of like, what's the real plan? How are we going to get there? We realized too late that we didn't have that end game dialed, but then you became the constant force of like, no, we really got to crack this. We really got to figure it out. And that's where we started putting a lot of our energy of how to evolve the business.
Yeah. And look, I think at that point, I had grown so much. I think just the process of raising the capital combined with sort of wanting to evolve myself as a business person and really beginning to learn how sort of venture capital worked, I began to start to look at the business differently, and
clear.
really began to like start look at everything with that, like, before you start win sort of mindset of like, okay, what do we actually, what
what are we
can
headed
we
towards?
do to get there? And everything kept pointing towards media, right?
Being a
Because
company.
where we were in trouble that we would have never contemplated was like the business from a unit economics standpoint was unscalable, right? So we had our product was our events and the content connected with it. Each one of those events cost $2 million to make. And there was just a max of sponsorship dollars that we could get for the overall tour. So, but since each one of these events was so expensive, there was literally no option for us to scale. We couldn't like raise enough money or create enough revenue to do more events because it just didn't exist. And so, now you're this 4 or 5 event company per year that has nowhere to go, right? So it's the only real option was to evolve away from being an events business and evolve to a media business. And really, the idea was born of like, hey, let's go create an entire content calendar all year long that was using our elite pro athletes and live events, right? And because the beauty of it is even the transition of TV and everything involved, like it was still live events where in sports was this huge driver. We had all the best athletes in the world. So now it was like, if it's $2 million to do a street league event, how do we do a live event in the streets for 20 grand? And that's where sort of the concept was born of the SVOD that we would launch. And to give you context between me and Brian, in the way that we think, what did you want to name the new SVOD originally?
I don't remember.
This guy wanted to name it Second Try. Like in skateboarding, it's all about tries, and he was like, we should name it Second Try. Like Street League was our first try. now this SVOD. I'm like, what, bro? Like that's so negative. I'm like, if anything, it should be First Try, right? Where it's like in skateboarding, like, the holy grail of like, you go to try a trick, you don't know if it could take you 1 try or 1,000 tries. So, but if you do it first try, like that mattered. So I'm like, if anything, we should call it First Try, like Second Try, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we're here, but like, hey guys, and, and so 2 days later, I'm sitting at home and I'm like, man, what's First Try? Like, that's not like really a brand. And then I'm like, man, and here's this concept. It was, we were going to show all live content. And as I'm thinking about that, like all of a sudden I'm like, no, the holy grail of skateboarding is mastery, right? And we say in skateboarding, when you have a trick on lock that you never miss it, we refer to it as every try. And so I was like, oh, that's it. Forget about second try or first try. This is every try. And it had the double entendre of like, this is an all skateboarding, all live platform. So you would see every single try. And I went and bought everytry.com and I just text you. I remember to this day because I was so gassed up on myself of like, this is genius. I bought everytry.com and I said, what's better than first try? And you're like, I don't know. And I sent it to you, everytry.com. You know what I mean? I don't know if you
I do remember that.
Specifically remember, but that was the launch. And it eventually became ETN because every try felt a little too on the nose.
And
for
ETN
skateboarding.
is like a broadcast network, has the 3-letter.
And look, so here we are. Still with these great partners that are supporting us, but now a lot of heavy lifting, a big hiring, spending a lot of money. and launched ETN, skateboarding's very first SVOD. And a SVOD is subscription video on demand. You know, like we had really began to understand the size of the skateboard market and ultimately the amount of people that watched our events and all this stuff. And really we saw, you know, the opportunity was to become our own distribution platform and have skaters pay for it, you know, and man, like, you know, just quickly, well, you know, because it's a pretty, you know, an extraordinarily amazing feather in the cap to know that you basically launched by yourself an entire network of content. What was it like to do that?
You know, the most, I think, exciting concept that we led with was that face melters, which is basically the gnarliest tricks in the streets live. And we opened up the app launch weekend, the Davis Gap, Jaws, and Tommy Gunn's Sandoval.
Yeah.
And we had...
And to give you an idea what he's saying is, because he was skate talking you, is we went to this giant monster gap that's essentially like somebody jumping down 20 stairs.
Yeah, the
on
gnarliest possible thing you could do on a skateboard.
Yeah, and you know that, you know, only a handful of people on earth would ever try, and we brought out like a live camera unit to like stream this live from the streets into your mobile phone to launch the ETN platform.
100%. And that first day, we had so many downloads given the size of the skate audience and a lot of conversions. And I remember you texted me like, that was really impressive, Brian. Like you pulled off an amazing launch. And it meant so much to me because it was just like Street League, a huge undertaking to launch something like that. And then we got into the realities of user growth and what it means to have SVOD app and actually the challenges on that. But it was a successful launch.
Yeah. And look, what it also did was change the way the business was looked at. Because now we went out and raised money, not on 1.5 times revenue, but we could now say, hey, we went from doing 4 live events with content associated around that to we're doing 40, 50 events a year, and we're a media business. And so almost with identical revenue now, we were able to go out and raise 10 million at 6 times our revenue.
A true Series B round.
A true Series B round, right? And it's just a testament to like understanding where even if you have an existing business, there is an opportunity to transition that business potentially to a higher trade value depending on what you have and where you could pivot it. Because I wouldn't even call it necessarily a pivot as much as it was an expansion.
Yeah, we re-engineered the business model and just changed how we monetized our platform.
You know, that's it. Like it was still the same core value of like, it's the best skateboarders in the world doing the hardest tricks in the world live. Right? Like, and that's how either the event was or all the way down to face melters in the streets. And it was rewarding in the sense, you know, especially from a Dyrdek machine perspective, because it was also like, you know, the only assets that I had kept from my previous portfolio was Street League and then evolving Super Jacket. So being able to like apply the new before you start win sort of aspect to like, we've got to turn this in to create the value to raise it was another hugely rewarding aspect of that. And then, you know, the reality of trying to launch an SVOD just proved to be extraordinarily difficult, right? And then, you know, you couple that with sort of what was happening in the live event world. And despite, you know, we're still having, you know, elite sponsors and still getting people to download and drive what it was, the league itself, the platform itself, again, had so much pressure to grow because, you know, you take on that money, like you are now at this new, you did it. You got to this 6x valuation from a 1.5 valuation, but boy, now you've got to go and build a business
worth 100 million or more. You have to get to the value to a point where the last round of investors can see a path to their return.
Yeah. And for us, it proved to be extraordinarily difficult. And then as fate would have it, the most unthinkable sort of opportunity presented itself. So there was a group that had owned Nitro Circus, who was a big live events, touring business, and was looking to add additional assets. And for a group like this, what they're trying to do is essentially like acquire as many assets in, the different sort of categories that could be connected to create one large value. They call it a roll up in the business. And they had eyed Super Jacket, the production company that we have through Dyrdek Machine, as like, hey, this would be an amazing opportunity to put Dyrdek Machine with Nitro Circus. And then it was like, wow, then we could take Street League and now add this. And now we really have overnight this amazing company that's all three of these brands together, which was a remarkable opportunity. One that I would say was almost of destiny, right? Mm-hmm. Because at this point you had transitioned completely out of Street League and ETN and were now the COO and president of the Dyrdek Machine. Mm. And here we are, the only two assets from the very beginning that we're looking to push into this roll up for both of them to be acquired at the very same time. What was that like for you?
I think the main thing was the whole journey that got us there was a lot of like dedication and like not giving up.
Yeah.
And that was something that I think you and I always had on our mind, is just like we kept going, we kept trying to like do the extra work, push on the extra deal, whatever it was to get to that stage. And basically the property lasted long enough, given that work and dedication, that opportunity presented itself. And, if it wasn't for the SVOD phase where we didn't get that Series B done, like all those milestones got us that much further on the journey. So it was a reflection of all the things that we just covered.
Now, in hindsight, should we have ever taken any money?
That's a complicated one. I would say yes, but we shouldn't have done it without having a better plan in advance.
Yeah.
With starting with the end in mind of really what's the end game. If we did that, the moment we probably signed Nike as a title sponsor,
yep,
we could have taken it to market for a full acquisition and got a really great return for our investors, for you. And they would have had 3 years of revenue for them to build the business off of. So we went into raising capital prematurely without truly understanding the end game. So that's what we would have done differently.
Yeah, hey, we would have done it completely differently, but we wouldn't have learned everything 100%. That we actually learned and now that we apply to every business we create now, So it was 100% destiny, but it ended up, a new company was formed, Thrill One Sports and Entertainment, an amazing CEO and Joe Carr, and Thrill One and Street League merged together, and then together they acquired Super Jacket. A monumental moment for myself, for you, and for the Dyrdek Machine, really. And again, we're here to celebrate. Since you are the co-founder and not only the president and CEO of the Dyrdek Machine, but ultimately the driving force of almost everything that I've learned in venture. Mm-hmm. It is only right that you get 12 bottles of Liquidity Vintage in your very own exit trophy that you get to keep in your house forever.
Thank you, Rob.
And again, not only am I thankful for you as a friend and someone who's intricate in this entire business that we do, and we're just at the very beginning of it, but thankful for how dedicated and how much you really did put in to see this thing all the way to the very end. So very much deserving.
Thank you, Rob. It means a lot to me, and I'm just incredibly grateful because I've learned so much. It's just been an amazing journey.
Okay, look, and as you know, we're doing the Do or Die Foundation. We're putting $100,000 in to the foundation for Street League, and as I've told you, I'm putting $100,000 in for Brian Atlas. And here's the thing: Brian Atlas was a young entrepreneur that got a loan from a foundation that changed his life.
That's true.
And so, some young entrepreneur through the Do or Die Foundation is going to win some money in the name of Brian Atlas.
Thank you.
Like
That's
a
amazing.
very special type of do or dyer that I call a super do or dyer who executes methodically with ease, right? Like this is my right hand man, the number 2 at the Dyrdek machine, and ultimately someone that I am proud to be in business with and look forward to celebrating many, many wins together
Well
for many
said.
years to come.
God bless. Well said. Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you, Brian.
Thank you.
If you think you have what it takes to be a do-or-dyer and partner with me to build an amazing company, or if you want to join our growing community of machinists to be the first to test out our new products and help us manufacture amazing, go to DyrdekMachine.com. If you haven't listened to the Dyrdek Machine Primer, I encourage you to go back to episode 1, which gives you insight to our machine method to really enhance your experience of the rest of the episodes. Make sure you subscribe to Build with Rob wherever you join us, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and anywhere else you get your podcasts and videos. And most importantly, you got to be able to clearly see what you want to achieve in life. You have got to lay out the plan and the strategy so that you know it's possible. Then you've got to give it every single bit of your soul to make it a reality. See it, believe it, do it. We will see you next time on Build with Rob.